Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Lipa, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
And we are live. Welcome to the Arsenal Vision live pre-match show. My name is Elliot Smith, and you can block me on Twitter at Yankee Gunner. Please like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. I've eliminated Scott's job by saying that, and so who knows if I will even introduce him. So, 6 minutes late. We are moving up in the world. We got plenty of time to get to everything. We're going to talk about the weekend action, including the wheels coming off the bus. We are going to participate in our new game, which is what terrible Arsenal shirt is Elliot wearing? I'll kind of show it to you. Get a feel for it. You can guess what awful name is on the back of this shirt. But before we do that, let's get to my guest, Scott. You can find him on Twitter, _that_crab. Hello, Scott.
Yeah! I also kind of followed the tradition and picked my own, terrible Arsenal shirt to be wearing today. So mine actually doesn't have a name on the back because I am cynical and don't put names on the backs of my jerseys. So, yep, that's me.
That's okay. Oh, look, you're small again. Don't worry, we'll make you big. You're big. You grows up and you grows up and you grows up. Okay, Scott, are you ready to dive into all this? Let's do this. Let's first and foremost get into the game today, just real quick. So I'm going to bring up your statistics, goal difference, expected points, winning percentage, and goals scored for people who are new to looking at these sort of statistics. What is this sort of quad box of graphical goodness telling us?
So this is basically all the good stuff that I can figure out to be able to run through my simulation model. So the first one here on the top left, that's going to be the different goal differences for the match. So for the most part, the red ones are Arsenal winning, the gray box is a draw, and then the black is Newcastle winning. So there's obviously a lot more Arsenal wins, and there's a good chance of Arsenal getting a big win, either a 2 or 3 or even 4+ goal win in this one. The top right breaks out the average winning percentage draws for all those, and then the bottom left is the expected points for the match, and the bottom right is just the raw tally of the goals scored. So it doesn't go to figure out what the different goal difference is between them. So that is the explanation for that. So this one, Arsenal are favored pretty heavily. This is probably the one that they'll be the most heavily favored to win going the rest of the season.
Yeah, well, let's take a look at the table, how it looks right now, Scott. And, looking at the table, I think what we can see is that, obviously Liverpool and City doing their thing, but the wheels are coming off the bus. Can we dive into the technical description of how a wheel comes off a bus? Do you think the lug nuts get loose and the wheel falls off the bus that way, or do you think that the bus hits some kind of bump, or do you think the bus is just super Spursy? My favorite thing to retweet is the Miguel Delaney tweet. Under Pochettino, we got to get rid of the word Spursy, not relevant to them anymore, because that thing will wind up being the most retweeted tweet of all time. Spurs look like they're in deep shit, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and I think it's the one mind kind of thing, because I too brought that up, on Sunday right after that goal went in. Oh, it was just lovely. So yeah, and just to answer your question, I think it's definitely the lug nuts. I think that they're probably corroded, possibly from bad lasagna getting on them. That's probably the most likely explanation. You just totally took them out. Too much acid in the lasagna, ate right through the nuts, and the wheels just came right off.
You went with lasagna, the acid eating through nuts, which, I mean, I don't think anybody wants to picture that. As we look at the table, though, I mean, obviously United doing United stuff, not playing great, but getting past Watford. And I think one of the things that we got to talk about is OGS at the wheel. They give Solskjaer the job. Look, we don't want United to win games, but wouldn't you agree that United winning sort of ugly and defying the statistics and kind of getting by and beating PSG when they sort of didn't deserve to has been actually a good outcome because it means OGS gets the job?
Well, so I'm of a couple different minds on this one.
Okay.
So I think that Solskjaer has actually been a good manager for them. He's got them probably playing back up to their talent level. So I think that, all things considered, probably not a bad move to give him the permanent role. So he's actually, been in charge and he's done well with the talent that's there. That being said, I think that now the expectations are just crazily high. So they have been the best team points wise since he took over. But the statistics say that they are probably closer to the third or fourth best team since he took over, and not the best team. So I think there might be some probably unrealistic expectations for what is going to happen now going forward. So there's a big difference between playing to your talent level and then crazily outperforming it. So I don't see them being, title contenders next season unless they go out and spend, $300 million on, players. So, but that's definitely a possibility with the money that they have. So I think that there's a good case to be made that he was the right manager to keep going, or at least, give him a chance as the full-time manager, because it's not like he's going to be super expensive, or they get rid of him and it's going to cost them a ton of money. The talk of them not going for a technical director, that's the one that kind of makes me a little bit, where I'm like
that.
What are you doing? Please, screw that up, because I've seen, to me, that's just something that the skill set to be able to do both in the modern game is just something that is just so far, a very minority skill set to be able to do that, because it's a full-time job to do both.
Well,
it's a full-time job to be a head coach, to be able to manage the tactics, manage the men that are there, to be able to get everybody happy, do all of those things to be able to prep for the game. And then there's a full-time job to watch football all the time, know all of the players that are around the world, read all the scouting reports, watch all the video, be prepped on all the scouts and your stats guys about what's going on, and then being able to, put a price on those guys. That's a completely different skill set, and one that I don't think that people have.
Yeah.
So it's just, I think it's something that you're not going to be able to find a manager who's able to do both.
Well,
these days.
Look, here's the point. They're one of the richest clubs in the world. They can spend, right? The fact that they don't have one of the elite managers in world football, and the fact that they don't have one of the elite directors of football in world football, is the only way we're going to keep them down. I mean, I hate to say it, but United with a Pep Guardiola and, I don't know, who's an elite director of football, you might want to say. I mean, I struggle to think of a name that would apply to them, but you take someone who's really elite in those departments and put them at United, and you have a real problem. It is the fact that they are willing to lean into these strategies that make them catchable and allow the hilarity of what their post-Ferguson years have been. So I'm totally fine with that. I think before we get into what you're seeing on the screen, we should really quickly talk about what's on the shirt. So let's see if we've got any guesses for this yet. Scott, do you have any guesses for this shirt? I mean, it wasn't a bad shirt. It's a Nike shirt. It's before Puma took over. Badges on it. Yeah, no, yep. You ready for me to ruin it? You think it's a Nasri? I can tell you that I never held him to my bosom the way some fans did. This is a player. So actually, this is interesting. Interesting little side story about this shirt. I put this shirt on my dog once. Which is sort of a cringy thing that people do. I apologize for it, but I was young once. And I took a picture of him in the shirt and I put it on Twitter. And the player retweeted that tweet, which at the time I was very excited about because that's what my life had come to. Now, that may not give you any insight, but do you want to take one last guess? Do we have any good guesses? What number? If I tell you the number, it's going to give it away. It's not Fabregas. I wish it was Fabregas. It is not Bentner. It is not Sven Mislintat, I guess, was an answer to something else, not the shirt. Oh, Jack Armstrong wins. You ready for it?
Yeah.
Here it is.
Let's see it.
Oh, God, I feel bad. Oh, it feels bad. Oh, and the back hurts. Oh, it feels bad. I have no idea if you can see it. Did you see it? Oh, yeah, because you're on the Robin Van Persie. I mean, look, with all due respect to me, not that anyone wants to give due respect to me, let's be honest, Scott. The guy was really good. He was really good. And he was an asshole, but he was our asshole. And we never saw the, hey guys, letter coming. I never saw that coming. I thought maybe he'd move on. The funny thing about the Van Persie thing, Scott, he leaves and goes to United and wins the title with them. And it was such a dick move, and the way he engineered it was terrible. You could make an argument that had it not been to United, selling was almost right because the guy 1 year later was totally useless. I mean, you could tell by the amount of gray hair the end was coming, right? We just mistimed it, or at a minimum sold to the wrong team.
Exactly. It was very much probably sold 1 year early, but that was probably better than giving him, that big 5 year or 4 or 5 year contract. And especially, at that point, Arsenal were still just coming out of, the really, really restricted spending, not, kind of similar to what we're at now. And, if Van Persie gets that contract, probably Ozil never comes. And, maybe Sanchez doesn't come the next season. Do Arsenal be able to maintain fourth place? Yeah, it's interesting. Lots of what ifs.
Yeah, lots of what ifs. All right, well, let's get into some what ifs on the top four front. So we've got the odds up on the screen now. Manchester City and Liverpool, 100% for top four. Yeah. Arsenal, 66%.
It would take something big for them to not make the top four.
All right, well, you have us at 66%. So what I wanted to ask you about this is, how does today's game impact the possibility of these the outcomes that you have listed here?
So a win probably wouldn't change things too much. So again, Arsenal are defending just about 2 expected points. So adding a 1 expected points to this wouldn't make a huge difference. But dropping 2 points in what's over expected would be a big deal, and that would probably put them. It would make it a really, really interesting and tight fight. So a draw probably does the same thing. It's a dropping a point. Probably puts them in that 50% range. So a win doesn't change much. Losing or drawing would.
Yeah, I think if we drop points here, we might be done, just because, as optimistic as I am about things with our away form and the return of Europa League next week, we're going to need some help. And so, speaking of help, let's look at Chelsea. Chelsea are the outsiders in these rankings, but they got a boost getting points now that they were admittedly expected to get. But I want to get your opinion on something, Scott. So you tell me, do you think that this is offside? Do you think that that's... Because to be fair, it's only about 1.5 yards offside. So, well, what the hell is this shit? Come on, man. Like,
I was going to try to have some sort of pithy thing to say, but no, it's very clearly offside. And these are the kinds of things that I think that you should really be able to see VAR in. A lot of these, like handball ones, like that one. Well, the handball rule to me is just, it's dumb. It's impossible because it's so much on, you need the intent of the player to be able to do it. And it seems like there's going to be, changes going in where it's, if you're gaining an advantage. And I think that's probably a better thing, because I don't think it's reasonable for, a referee to be able to read a player's mind. And it's like, did he intend to do that? But an offsides thing like this is super obvious. This isn't like, is his shoulder or his knee just that millimeter above? This is a whole body length is outside of the line.
And look, so here's what I think happens. He starts the move like on the goal line, and then he drops back in. But once the ball gets to him, he's actually level or behind the defender. And I think, look, linesmen don't want to get these wrong. I mean, unless they have money on the game, which, it certainly looked like Hugo Lloris had money on the Spurs game against Spurs. But like,
how did he not just hold on to that ball?
They don't want to get this wrong. I don't think any linesman or referee wants this to be the talking point after the game. So with VAR, I think this is a situation where VAR helps them. That linesman doesn't want to lose his job. So here's the interesting thing, right? He probably gets sent down and has to be linesman or third referee in a championship or League One game now because of this. With VAR, they take a quick look at the screen, they get the call right. Nobody remembers this happened, and that line judge, maybe, that referee gets to stay in the Premier League. Now, you should argue a guy who gets this call wrong doesn't deserve to stay in the Premier League, but this was huge. Chelsea ultimately wind up getting all 3 points. Without this goal, I mean, maybe they still come back to get a point. They certainly don't get all 3. Dropping points to Cardiff here, were they expected to get all 3 points in your model? I mean, would this have been a massive turnaround?
Yeah, so I think they were, depending, like 2.3 expected points here. So, even just getting a draw here would have been a really, really bad result for them. And I think if you give up a goal to Cardiff at this point, I mean, you should really just, consider your season done.
Yeah.
So I mean, they should just be disqualified in general.
So now the simulation we have up here, you have them simulated at 71.7 points, 36.9% for top 4. And that's with the win yesterday. So
with the win, yes.
Yeah, they're still in trouble. I mean, Spurs behind Arsenal. Is this the first time this season Spurs have been behind Arsenal in the top 4 percentages?
Yeah, so I think right before the weekend, they were pretty much neck and neck with Arsenal. I think they were about 1 point for, what they were at Liverpool. So it was like 73 74.3 to 70 or 74.3 to 74.4 going in. So basically they were neck and neck with Arsenal. So yeah, losing that one expected point, and they very well could have came away with this if Sissoko wasn't horrible and Lloris was able to hold on to a rather softly headed ball. So yeah, they really Spurs it up there.
This is my favorite. I don't know if you've seen it. This is a screenshot from the video of people seeing Spurs' new stadium for the first time. I think this sums up how Spurs felt at the end of that Liverpool game. I mean, Scott, they were actually kind of impressive in that game, which I guess would be the worry, but they really Spurs the shit out of it. Lloris is low-key a bad keeper, isn't he?
Yeah, and he has some big errors in him. He does a lot of things well. I don't think his distribution is that great. I know a lot of the guys that are sweeper keeper styles that are able to kind of come off their line. They get kind of associated with being a guy who's able to play out from the back, but I don't think Lloris is actually very good at that. I think his shot stopping has actually deteriorated quite a bit. I think 2 or 3 years ago, he was probably in the argument for, one of the better keepers in the league. But I think that his skills have diminished quite a bit. So I think he is probably now an average, maybe slightly above average, keeper. I think he's just gotten worse as he's gotten older. Father time always wins.
And we know that he likes a drink. Maybe he's just drunk while he's playing. Which, let's be honest, who hasn't done something while drinking that they're not supposed to? But enough said about that. All right, look, I think what we need to do right now, we're getting close to the lineups being put out. In fact, have they come out yet? Let me just take a quick peek because I want to make sure we get to that if the lineups are out. So we're going to take a look at that right now. While I do that here, let's transition real quick to these. Scott, top 4 predictions from the pod. We look at Spurs. It looks like we had a couple people, who's that? Dotted line, that's Tim. So Tim gave Spurs a point at Liverpool. Nobody else gave them any points. So no real change there. As far as United, let's see, where's the Watford game? Watford and Wolves. So, trying to read this is not easy, but it looks like Tim gave United all 3 points. I gave United all 3 points. Gosh,
I gave them all 3.
You gave them all 3 points. Yep.
Yeah.
So not a huge problem there. Everybody, I believe, gave Chelsea all 3 points. Yep, Chelsea. We had Chelsea winning all these games until West Ham, where there were quite a few people having them drop points. And then that leaves us with Arsenal. Everybody's got us winning this game. I think it really does become absolutely crucial. So I'm going to go to see the lineups right now and see if we have. It's match day. Racism has no place in football. Agree. Checking.
I see some Newcastle ones, but I haven't seen Arsenal's come out yet.
All right, talk me through what you're seeing from Newcastle. I haven't seen it yet. What are you seeing?
All right, I'm opening it up right now.
Okay.
Rafa reveals the team.
What is it?
I'm still scrolling. There's a lot of text here. Just give me some graphics. Come on, Newcastle. What are you doing?
All right, fine. I'll give you some graphics. Here you go. Give you some cover. Go back to that. There you go. Here, we'll go to something kind of funny here.
It doesn't. Maybe it's just the people that are traveling here. Yeah. So
just the traveling team. Okay.
Yeah, not an actual lineup yet.
Did you enjoy Neil Warnock's freak out at the referees? The sort of disappointed grandfather freak out?
Yeah, and it's probably deserved because they are in the middle of the relegation fight, and that was something that really swung things for them. So now if you look at them, I think they are like 80% to go down now. And I think if they had, held on to win, they probably would have been, maybe, 50-50. A draw probably puts them at like 60%. And it's a huge deal for them to actually get dragged into this. So I totally understand. There's a ton of money on the line, being able to stay in the Premier League. So it makes sense that he's so upset, but it's even more funny with Mr. Brexit means Brexit.
Yeah, I mean, it is kind of funny. Okay, so do you have the Rafa lineups, or is still you said it was
just team news.
It was just team news. Okay, so
we're gonna have to
let's do this. We probably have no, it's fine. We probably got 5 minutes. I mean, why don't you talk me through how you want us to line up today? I mean, what do you see? I don't believe we have any suspensions.
And
As far
it
as I'm
seems like there was a
Torreira
pretty
back?
clean bill of no. Torreira is still
Still banned.
suspended.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
but a
Ramsey
pretty clean
came
bill of
through.
health. Yeah, through the not too bad after the international break. Everybody seems to be.
Do we have news Ramsey is back?
I
Is
thought
that
he was in full training.
okay?
Is what I
Great.
saw.
Great. And I think didn't Socrates pick up something over the?
Yeah, and I think it was just another kind of more of a precaution. So I think I haven't, correct me if I'm wrong in the chat, but I don't think that he's out.
I do want to apologize again. A lot of people in the chat really, really strongly complaining about the fact that I am wearing a Van Persie shirt. It is for comedy purposes only. I assure you it is worn ironically. I meant to burn it, but I was out of lighter fluid that day. And I live somewhere that's very cold most of the year and things don't really ignite very well. So I apologize for that. Scott, give me your preferred lineup. Go.
I think I kind of want to see something similar to we saw, the last weekend, or 2 weeks ago against Manchester United. I think that's probably been a pretty strong lineup. I could even see us going to the 4-2-3-1 with similar players. Maybe Monreal drops out, and then we go the back four of Maitland-Niles, Socrates, Koscielny, Kolasinac, and then Ramsey, Xhaka in midfield. And then if it's a Ozil, Lacazette, Aubameyang, that's good. Or if it's a Iwobi and Mkhitaryan with one of the two strikers, I'm happy with either of them. I think as long as it's something that's showing attacking power, I'm happy.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'll take that. So I guess, for me, the issue comes down to he was really trusting Ozil and Ramsey right before the break. He had some success playing with one up top with Mkhitaryan and Iwobi on either side, or however he wanted to go. In the two games right before the break, the United and the Rennes game, he went with Aubameyang and Lacazette up front as a two up front with Ozil right behind them in the back three. So do you have a preference for how he sets up today? I mean, it seems we always talk about the back three as being conservative, but I think the way he's doing it now evinces more attacking intent than maybe at some points in the season, especially when it's Ozil behind the two strikers.
Yeah, and I think especially with Monreal as that left center back, Kolasinac is going to push up because he's not really a defensive-minded fullback at all. He's very attacking, so I think he almost plays as a true winger. And then Monreal at times will have that freedom to actually even move up a little bit further. So even in the back three with the current iteration, it's definitely an attacking style. Maitland-Niles is also a rather attacking player. You have Ramsey in midfield, so he's going to be a guy that goes through. So it's definitely an attacking version of the back three. It is not a back five by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm not going to be too worried if that is the case. I think the big key is, if Ozil's in there, there's going to be somebody that's able to link. If it's a Iwobi, he's also good at that, but not quite at the same level. So I think that's the big key, to be able to have someone in there like that. If it's Ramsey in the 10, maybe that's going to be a signal that it's going to be more of a pressing lineup and not a possession-oriented. But I don't think that's the right fit for Newcastle. Newcastle, I imagine, is going to let us have most of the ball. I wouldn't be surprised if it pushes 70% possession for Arsenal today. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, so I got to give huge thanks to Himanshu, by the way. Taneha, scroll back. For Taneha. Yeah, Himanshu Taneha with the super chat, and he comes in just in time, Scott, because what he has done is he has brought up the issue of one Mustafi. He says lifetime ban for Mustafi. No lifetime ban for Mustafi, but before we introduce him and get his thoughts on today's match, you have any thoughts on whether you think Mustafi will be in the game today?
I'm hoping that he is solidly on the bench.
Yeah,
so I don't want to ever see him there. You don't want to see him again? No.
How do you feel he's been playing lately?
You watched him play in Dubai, right? He really.
Oh gosh, yeah. Talk me through that.
Where he, absolutely fell for the feint, went to ground, and then just watched the ball curl around him for a goal. It was very classic Mustafi.
Did you see the training video?
Oh, I didn't see the training video. I've been busy doing stats work. Taking care of my international break, really putting the nose to the grindstone and getting out that sweet content.
Yeah, the training video was extraordinary. I mean, really.
Maybe I'll have to go back and look for that one.
Genuinely extraordinary. Yeah. Here, let me do this. Let me get you off the solo screen there, so you're not sitting there. I do have Mustafi here. Hello, Mustafi. Hello. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. Very excited about Newcastle game. So what we're going to do for Mustafi here, Scott, is we're going to load up some content for him. How do you feel about that?
Sounds great. Let's do it.
So what we've done is we've created a little bit of a montage footage of Mustafi, which we're pretty excited about. And we're going to give him a chance to sort of talk us through what we're seeing with him there, which I'm pretty excited about. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring that up. Let's see if I can get that brought up. It's not loading right now, so maybe we'll do that in just a moment. But Mustafi, I mean, do you have a feeling about your performance today? Well, I am. The accent with this is just terrible, Scott. I can't do it, but we'll try it. Yeah, I'm hoping to play, but always happy to dive in, get back on top of player or ball or 2 foot through ball or dive over player. Very happy to do that for team and side foot ball through ankle of player, pick up red card, maybe even penalty. You that's not the point, right? You're supposed to stay on your feet and defend competently. No, pretty sure you're wrong. Pretty sure you're wrong. Oh boy. We gotta let you go, man. As soon as I get your video reel queued up, you can come in and talk us through it. Cool. We're gonna say goodbye to him. That was Mustafi. And Scott, I gotta believe the lineups are out now. We are past the hour mark, so I'm gonna bring it up. Let's see if we get it. That was a lot of vamping and cover to try to discuss the lineups.
I do see it here.
Here's how we line up. All right, I'm gonna read it out. You ready?
I'm ready.
Leno in goal. Maitland-Niles, Mustafi, Socrates, Monreal, Kolasinac. So we do go with the back three. Guendouzi and Ramsey in midfield. I don't believe we've seen that before. That means no Xhaka. In fact, Xhaka not in the team. We'll have to investigate that. Iwobi, Ozil, Lacazette. Wow.
Yeah, no
wow,
Aubameyang.
no
On the bench.
Aubameyang on the bench. Lacazette, Ozil, Iwobi, Ramsey. I mean, this is a totally different team. Would you say, it's a 3-4-1-2 with a Iwobi? No, 3-4. What is
3, 4,
this?
2, 1. I think maybe you have Ozil and Iwobi wide.
Could Ozil be played as sort of a striker too, as the two with Iwobi behind them, or how do you see the setup? This is a really interesting setup. I imagine there's going to be a lot of scrutiny for this. A game we have to win. We need to score some goals.
I think it's going to be people with some freedom of movement. I think if it's going to be one that you put it up on the
can't bring up
chalkboard,
freedom of movement right now, Scott. That's a hot button topic in Britain. Can you say that differently?
I'm sorry, didn't even think about that one. That one was an unintentional slip.
Mm-hmm. So how do you see this setting up?
I think you put it up on the chalkboard, but I think it's going to be one where Ozil, Iwobi, they're going to have time to be able to interchange. They're going to be able to be free to move about the attacking third. I think they're going to look for Ramsey to be able to support, really get width from the wing backs. So I don't think it's a bad lineup. I'm a little bit disappointed that there's no Aubameyang because I think that he is our best actual striker. And I think if you're going to pay Ozil in that 10, and I think that you don't need Lacazette quite as much for his hold-up play and his being able to bring others in there, because I think that's what, you have Ozil in that role, so you don't need him to be able to come back. So it says Xhaka out with a tight groin is the reason that he is.
I mean, who doesn't have a bit of a tight groin? So I mean, are you surprised no Mkhitaryan or Aubameyang?
I'm a bit, yeah, I definitely am. I'm less so on Mkhitaryan. I thought Aubameyang, but it says he actually has a temperature, so he's got maybe a bit of a flu. So maybe he's not fit for a full 90 minutes.
That's pretty worrying.
But hopefully it's some small, and that's where it's nice to be able to have the second striker who is maybe not quite at the same level, but still somebody that you're not worried about starting. Not like you're Chelsea, who's trying to choose between a overweight Higuain and a over the hill Olivier Giroud.
Yeah, I'm concerned about it. I think the good news is you have Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan on the bench who can come in and make a big difference. The question is, they don't need to be saved per se, right, Scott? Because we've had a long break and there's no football midweek, so. It's one of those things where we'll have to see how it plays out, but having them on the bench is a good thing. I think the weird thing for me is just there was a formula that seemed very successful going into the break, and this is sort of a departure from that. Now with no Torreira and no Xhaka, he has to make some changes. I understand bringing Guendouzi back in. Do you think maybe to sort of help support Guendouzi, the presence of Iwobi and Ozil, extra men in midfield to just try to create more possession in the center of the pitch, all those guys comfortable on the ball, all those guys final third entry guys? Do you think there's something to that? I'm worried we might wind up being in a situation where once we get into the final third, we're short of options to get on the end of moves.
It's possible, but, again, Arsenal are going to have the most of the ball, so I think it's going to be being able to pass the ball quickly around the final third to be able to get Newcastle out of their shape. That's going to be, I think, the bigger thing that is important. I think that Lacazette isn't going to be – he has Ramsey there who's going to be able to make those late runs into the box. Ozil's not horrible at getting in, and he's not going to take his shot, but he's good at getting into the box. Iwobi's good at getting into the box. Again, another guy who's not going to take a lot of shots. So it's going to be, I think, pretty dependent on Lacazette and Ramsey probably to get the big chunk of the shots today. I don't see a ton of shots in this game. I probably peg it about 12 today. I think that's probably what Arsenal are going to get. So hopefully there's some high quality ones, and hopefully Arsenal are able to finish them today.
Yeah, I agree. Let's talk about something just real quick. We've been linked sort of interestingly with some players this week, and let's just touch on transfers really quickly. Alaba, player that we've been linked with. You think there's any truth to that? I mean, it sounds like Bayern are ready to move on from him. What do you make of that?
It's possible. So they did just bring in, is it Lucas Hernandez from Atleti? So he's a guy that can play out as a left back. He's played a lot of center back as well, but did play left back for France and their World Cup winning team. So it's an interesting thing. So, but same thing with with Alaba. Alaba can play all over the field. He actually plays as more of a midfielder when he's playing for Austria. So he's a guy that has also been able to play center back. So that's the one that I'm a little bit more not quite sure about. I think that he's probably a guy that if I was Bayern, I would hold on to because he's so versatile. He's been with them for a long time. He's not like he's pushing 30 either. I think he's 26, 27. So he's still in that prime age. Maybe not prime age for a fullback, but with his skill set, I think that there is still plenty of room for him in that team. So I don't know if Bayern is really going to be looking to let him go, but I would love to have him at Arsenal because he's probably been, arguably the best left back in the world. You might be able to make an argument for Marcelo, but he's more of a wing back attacking player. I think Alaba is a lot more well-rounded, so I would very gladly take him at Arsenal.
Yeah, I agree with that. What about this one, though? This one may be a little more of a stretch. Umtiti from Barcelona, another guy we're linked with. I mean, obviously, we do need to push the boat out for a center back a little. You think this one could happen?
There's a lot of smoke going around about this, and maybe Lacazette can really do the kind of the NBA thing where you get on the phone with your buddies and say, hey, come join us, because apparently they're really good friends. So that's another one that I think that he is a very good player. His ball winning skills are very good. His ability on the ball is very good. He might have a little bit of a Mustafi in him where he kind of loses his head from time to time, but he is definitely a top class player and someone that I would very, very like to see on the team.
To the injury, was it a knee that's been a problem for him? Does that worry you at all?
I don't know. I mean, football players, they get injured. It happens. I trust the medical staff, although Arsenal medical staff, maybe it was the old medical staff, did sign off on a player with a broken back. So it's, you never know.
Strong point there. One more thing I want to touch on before we get back to the game and say goodbye. They announced tour dates. There's going to be a game against Colorado Rapids, but also Bayern, Roma, Cup. Madrid. Yeah, the Kroenke Cup, the International Kroenke Cup, if you spell Kroenke with a C. Interestingly, Crook is spelled with a C. So what are you going to do for this? I mean, you live in the Bay Area. I think the Bayern game, is that the one that's in L.A.? You planning on attending any of these?
Yeah, I probably won't make a trip down to L.A.
All the way down to L.A.?
Yeah, I've already got my summer trips kind of planned out, so I don't think I'm going to be able to make a trip down there, although that would be fun. I did see them when they came to San Jose. It's a lot of fun. The only thing is these tickets are quite expensive, so they really are pushing hard to get your money for these matches. And although there isn't a summer tournament, so you'll probably get a pretty full squad out there. There really shouldn't be too many guys that are out. So it's probably a good timeout. Don't go looking for a Champions League style match, but one that's played about 75%. It's a friendly, kind of like going to spring training. It's good fun as long as you keep it in that context.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably going to make it out to the one in LA. I have some friends out there, and I do want to go. So if anybody is planning on going to that one, I know that, people are saying tickets are $200 a piece, lol. I look at it more as a chance to just see a group of Arsenal fans that I don't get to see very often, go out and see friends. I mean, if you treat it like a vacation, $200 night out, I mean, you're going to drink $200 worth of alcohol on a night out. Am I right? I mean, maybe I'm not right.
I've done it.
Yeah, maybe not. Here we go. This is the footage of Mustafi that we saw pre-match. This is some of his training footage that we saw. Really glad we got a look at this. This is from London Colney, him getting ready for the match. And I think, you just watch this and you clearly see the hallmark signature Mustafi running style of going into challenges. Here you see him going into a challenge and sort of, he's just, he's been stopped by the attacker. Here he is diving in to every oh gosh, he's gone to ground. Signature Mustafi move there. A little bit of an unusual running style, but yeah, I think we can agree, Scott, that when it comes to Mustafi, there's really very little surprise about the things he can try on a pitch, and I think we can both agree that it's not something we want to see anytime soon. You worried about the Koscielny injury? I mean, this is the problem now. As we go into the stretch run, the one thing I think we've all felt is that Socrates and Koscielny have to play every game. I think someone in the chat said bruised foot. What do you think about, no Koscielny in the team, and the fact that Mustafi, back in already? It's pretty big cause of concern, isn't it?
It probably is. So a bruised foot, I'm not really sure how bad that is. Is that a day-to-day kind of injury? Is it so bad
worrying
that he couldn't have played today?
Well, that's the thing. It's worrying,
know.
Right? Because bruised foot sounds innocuous, but it also sounds like the kind of thing. You're not going to make it worse. You know what I mean? Like if you have a bruise, you're not going to make it worse by playing, I would think. Now, look, I guess if it's on the top of your foot and you can't kick the ball because of the pain, like that's fine. And maybe they're just looking at it as we think we can nurse our way through this game without him. We need him the rest of the season. But this was the thing we worried about, right? You need Socrates and Koscielny in every one of these lineups. Could we do that? You and I played a game the other day talking about what players you'd sell or buy and so on and so forth. And you said who would you want back from injury more, Holding or Welbeck? And you said Welbeck because you can get through with Koscielny and Socrates the rest of the season. Rory without Koscielny, I think it's got to be a worry.
It's definitely a worry. Just seeing, Newcastle's lineup here too. So they got, Miguel Almiron, the former MLS star. He's going to be there on one of the wide guys, Perez, he's been an interesting guy. So he's not a guy that is a great attacker, but he is a very industrious type of player. So he will very much really press well. He's a guy that is, leads on stats bombs, defensive pressures. He's well up there. Rondon up top, so that's going to be a handful for our center backs, and then I worry about Mustafi on Rondon. So they have some pretty good talent there for those three to attack, and I worry about them being able to catch our wide players out on the break. So it'll be interesting to see if we can really pin them back and then press them effectively to be able to stop them from springing those counterattacks fast.
All right, well, let's go back to your graphics again that you created. Here they are. This is the quad box of graphics: goal difference, winning percentage, expected points, and goals scored. For anybody who doesn't understand how to read this, when they see something like expected points, 0.8 to 1.9, what does that mean?
So basically, you take the expected odds for each option. So a win is obviously 3 points. So Arsenal have 58% chance of a win. So it's 0.58 times 3, and then it's plus 1 times 0.207. So that is the expected points for the match. So it's basically, if you go through and you simulate the match, that's the amount of points that Arsenal get when you run it 10,000 times.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. Look, I have been told by the chat that you can aggravate a bruise and make it worse. And look, I'm not a doctor, but I am confident in saying things about medicine and anatomy as though I were a doctor. So I feel pretty confident that whatever I've said is accurate, but it may not be, seeing as how I am neither a doctor nor really understand anything medically related. Let's get ready to wrap up, Scott. Let's get predictions. What do you expect from today? And in terms of the outcome, but also in terms of how you see the outcome playing out.
Oh, man, this is going to be a tough one. I guess I think Rafa is a manager who really knows how to. Yeah, he makes things tough and unwatchable. So I imagine that this one could be a real drag. I fully expect Arsenal to win, but I don't expect it to be a big blowout. Arsenal's going to have a lot of the ball, and Newcastle's really going to try to hit us on the break. So I think it really depends on when the scoring happens. So if Newcastle score early, they are really, really going to be deep. Even deeper than probably what their initial lineup is. So, but if Arsenal score, Newcastle's in a spot where they probably don't need a win here to be able to stay safe, but it probably wouldn't hurt for them to be able to fight for points. So they're not going to just give up on this match. So I think that I'm probably predicting a 1-0 to the Arsenal in this one. I think it's going to be a kind of a slugfest. I don't think there's going to be a ton of shots. I think Arsenal are going to be low double digits. Newcastle, in that mid single digits. So not a lot of action going on in this one.
Yeah,
That's my prediction.
I would say, like, my personal take on this is, so let me tell you what I'm encouraged by and what I'm worried by, okay? First of all, I really like that Emery is relying on Ozil and Ramsey in the stretch run. I mean, whatever you think of these players, they have a lot of experience and a lot of quality, and I think we are better with them for right now, and I think it's good that he's arrived at a point where he trusts them in a game like this. I think this is a team that, to me, looks set up for a lot of possession. I mean, to have a lot of the ball, because between Ramsey and Guendouzi and Iwobi and Ozil, these are players that like to be on the ball, that pass at a really high rate, that control possession. Lacazette can control possession as sort of a hold-up striker. What worries me is who's going to run in behind? Who's going to make the secondary run? Is it going to be Ramsey from central midfield, leaving Guendouzi to clean up behind him? Are we going to work for the overlaps? I mean, if that's the case, then you have to wonder, do we need that extra player in the middle? Could we have had an extra striker if we're going to play for the overlaps and the crosses into the box? Do we need both Iwobi and Ozil? Could we have gone with just Ozil and Aubameyang and let those wingbacks, Maitland-Niles and Kolasinac, get forward? Obviously, I worry about Maitland-Niles being protected by Mustafi over on his side. That side looks very vulnerable to me. Maitland-Niles, very, very good standing up tackling. I like that. But sometimes he gets caught out of position, falls asleep, and lets runners get in behind. And we know Mustafi is not the best at cleaning up in dangerous situations. Again, we'll look at some of the Mustafi training footage. And I think as you watch this, you just see the running style is all wrong. The approach to contact is wrong. I'm not sure what he's doing with his arms there. Goes to ground, obviously, a little too easily. So, and here you see the body position, body shape not necessarily right. Again, trying to get a handball in the box in this clip here. These are all worrying things that we're going to have to look out for Mustafi doing as we play today. Scott, I see us being in a tense type match that maybe we shade it, but it's 0-0 at the end of the half, and that Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang have a big role to play in the second half. Obviously, if Aubameyang's not well, then, who knows, maybe he's on the bench purely for emergency reasons. Trying to get through this one without Xhaka, without Aubameyang, without Mkhitaryan, without Koscielny. I mean, it is a worry. Without Torreira, obviously. Is this his last game of his ban?
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is the third match. So I think this is his third and final game.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong here, but I think that's right.
We're just gonna have to find a way through with a really changed lineup, and it is times like this that you're thankful that Ramsey and Ozil are back in the fold, because if you go back a couple months ago, if he hadn't felt comfortable starting those two today, who would have been in there? Would it have been a Dennis Suarez starting, something like that? Not that he's the worst player in the world, but certainly, I think we'd feel a lot more comfortable with Ramsey and Ozil. I think we're good enough to do this, obviously. We've been great at home. I think it's just a question of whether we have enough firepower in the starting lineup. And we'll...
Yeah, so I think this will be an interesting one to see if Emery can change the game, because like you were saying, I fully expect this one to be 0-0 going into the second half. So I think it'll be an interesting one if he's willing to pull the trigger at the 55-60 minute mark to get on some fresh attackers, because I imagine Newcastle is going to be sitting deep a lot, and that's going to take a lot out of the legs, and that would be a perfect opportunity to get another attacking player on, if it's Mkhitaryan, if it's Aubameyang or Suarez, to bring in there for one of Iwobi or Ozil. I think that'll be an interesting one to be able to do today.
The one thing that's interesting, and I'll hit you with a stat, Scott, is that since the Bate Borisov loss, the loss away to Bate, we've been leading at the half in every game since. Now remember, it was December 18th, I think, our 18th game, something like that, before we had any halftime lead this season. We've led at the half of every game since, and I think that's made a big difference, obviously, not just because leading is good, but because I think we are a better team when we are able to have that cushion, right? When we can play, it sounds so obvious to say play from the front, because everybody's better with a lead than behind, I would think, but I think we particularly struggle when we chase a game because we don't get the balance between defending and attacking, right? So, given that halftime leads have been such an important part of it, I obviously think that's going to be crucial today. Do you worry at all about the layoff? I mean, rust is such a soft factor, but do you worry about rust having not played for so long? The Dubai game wasn't really much of a competitive fixture.
I don't think so. I think at this stage of the season, everybody has played enough where I think that getting rest is probably more important than being able to, maintain, the rhythm of playing every week. So I don't think that that's going to be the biggest issue. I think it was probably nice for them to get out to, do some warm weather training, probably, rest, recuperate a little bit. Not everybody. Arsenal had a pretty light international squad, so that actually wasn't too bad. So a lot of the key players, didn't have to go out onto international duty. So that was good. So I think that, at this point of the season, it's better to get that rest over, to keep the momentum going.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it, and I've got two graphics overlaid here, so let's get rid of that. We go third with this. I mean, this is pretty exciting. Like, if we win today, first of all, that will give us the third best goal difference in the league, which I still think could be a decider in top four this season, and we go third ahead of Spurs. It's a huge, we try to stay away from things like momentum and confidence and that because they play a role, but we don't want to lean into them. But I do think this team going third ahead of having to go play in Napoli, ahead of having to go, well, I guess we have Napoli at home first, but playing Napoli ahead of the 5 away fixtures we have, I think psychologically playing from that position of being in the top 4 and feeling like it's within our reach makes a big difference. I mean, for you, do you buy into those psychological factors? Do you think that going third today is important, not just obviously for the points it puts on the board, but for the psychological impact it gives the team to just get it done and finish these last few games out?
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, I think it's better than the alternative. I mean, you don't want to be, facing that uphill battle. I know it's kind of an old thing, but, you open the newspaper, you look at the table, and it's kind of a downer to be able to see another team above you. So I think there is a little bit of a confidence factor. Again, these are not going to be the major things that, swing a season, but they're, the tiny little margins that, just kind of help you feel a little bit better. Maybe it makes that last little bit of training that little bit easier that, you got that spot to hold on to. You're putting the pressure on, hashtag what's what Spurs do, to be able to kind of keep them away and think of them in their head now that I have to do this. I have to, be a little bit harder. And, sometimes I think in football, when you're trying too hard, that's when things don't quite come off. So I would much rather be, in that third position, because you look at it right now and you see us with this potential to go up there. And there's a bit of, more pressure than what I think that would be if we played this match first on the weekend.
Oh, yeah, I totally agree.
If we played this, Saturday morning before, Spurs and United had played and we were still, above United, I think that would be, a different kind of mentality to now where, if we lose this, we are still below them. Or if we win, we only go even on points with them. We'll be, even with the Spurs on goal difference if we draw. But it's still, there's just that big factor, I think, in the timing of the matches. It's not going to be what decides it, but it does add something. It's not necessarily easily quantifiable. Yeah, but it matters.
It feels like hyperbole to say it, so I'm going to say it because that's kind of my brand. I think losing today would potentially be fatal for top 4. To stay 5th after today and still have all those away games, it's not that we couldn't overcome it. It's just I think it'd be a problem. And I think given that Emery has to go into this game without Koscielny, without Xhaka, without Torreira, with Aubameyang, I guess, sick, it's a lot to ask. And the team has to step up and get it done. I think we are very lucky this game is being played at home, obviously, with all those players missing, because we've just been very good at home, and I think we will get it done. I feel confident. I'm going to say 3-1 to the Arsenal. I do think there's a substitute to come on and get a goal that maybe is important at 1-1, but we'll see what happens. I do think we'll get it done. Scott, you do as well. Why don't you do this, Scott? I'll let you say all the important stuff, what everybody has to do before we get out of here. So go for it.
Yeah, so if you enjoyed the video, give us the thumbs up. While you're there, hit the subscribe button, the little bell. You'll know when we do these kinds of things. Follow us on Twitter. He's at Yankee Gunner. I'm at @O_that_crab. Oh, there's another underscore in there between the words. It's easy. You can figure it out. Just search. You'll find it. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks, Scott. Scott's _that_crab. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me. Yeah, well, it is what it is. Block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Hey, give us a 5-star review. That's podcast stuff. We will be back with the podcast. One thing, thumbs up, hit the bell, all that stuff, yada, yada. FBAs. So the Football Blogging Awards are coming out. We somehow won Fans Vote Best Podcast last year, and I think it's fair to say that I have talked less in the last year, and that alone is worth your vote, I hope. So if you can go to arsenalvisionpodcast.com/FBAs, it's in the info under the video. I think we did that right. I have no idea. You can find it, and that'll be great. Hey, look, we are going to get out of here. Up the Arsenal, 3 points. Big game today. Gotta win. Gotta get 3 points. Come on, Arsenal. We can do it. We'll talk to you after the next one.